Welcome back to Strayatrains and to Moreland Station. In this video, we take a look at the ins and the outs of the Upfield Line. Hope you enjoy the video. As tradition, first up we'll start with an overview of the line. The Upfield Line is served by Metro's Comenge and Siemens fleet, and the line code is UFD. The Upfield Line is a total of 19 stations long, and 13 of those 19 lie on the Upfield Line exclusively. The Upfield Line serves Melbourne's northern suburbs and is a part of the Northern Group on a railways map, which means it is given the line colour of yellow. Service terminations include Batman and Upfields. For service alterations, Coburg can also be a termination. Oh, and that Batman service? We'll come to it very soon because it is a very interesting one. Now time for some service notes in terms of the loop direction. Upfield trains run clockwise via the City Loop on weekdays, and then about 12:30 or so, just after the switch, Upfield trains then run anti-clockwise via the City Loop, which means they run to Upfield via the loop. On weekends, all Upfield trains run clockwise, which means they run towards Flinders Street via the City Loop. And all Upfield trains use Platform 3 in the City Loop, which is part of the Northern Loop. Southern Cross Platform 11. And then in terms of Flinders Street, Upfield trains typically depart from Platforms 4 and 5, though from time to time, Upfield trains have departed from Platforms 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 12. In terms of limited express patterns, during the peak AM there is one limited express service, and that is the 9:22 Batman Limited Express service. It stops all to North Melbourne, runs express from North Melbourne to Royal Park to Coburg, then stops all to Batman. Now, yes, this is actually the only down Upfield Line train not to terminate at Upfield, and is actually the only down express service, which has a very interesting stopping pattern. However, the next service that it forms going back towards the city is very interesting too. If on time, the Batman service should terminate at 9:43 AM on Platform 2 at Batman Station. Now, another ex-Upfield City Loop train should depart Platform 1 at Batman at 9:47 AM, and then the ex-Batman train should depart 4 minutes later at 9:51 AM towards the city, and then uses the points near Coburg Station to switch onto the designated up track, which is the Platform 1 side of the line. But because it is about 4 minutes behind the previous City Loop train, it is actually scheduled to remain idle at Coburg for about 3 minutes, something that you don't often see where a service deliberately stops at a station for a few minutes. Typically this only happens when there is a single track on either side of the platform and only one train can travel at a time. But keep in mind, both sides of Coburg Station is duplicated. Upfield Line frequency looks like a 20-minute frequency in the off-peak. During the peak, about every 14 to 19 minutes. At night time, every 30 minutes. On the weekend, every 20 minutes. And the night weekend network is a 60-minute frequency that is a stop-all service except Southern Cross. Travel tip time. First up, make sure if you are on that Batman service, you do know it is a limited express service, so it may skip your station. Now, the next tip is not necessarily guaranteed to save time, though it may. But there is something really cool to explore near the Upfield Line, and that is actually the Upfield bike path. It starts around Royal Park Station, which is near the Melbourne Zoo in the suburb of Parkville, and runs through the suburbs of Brunswick, Coburg, and even all the way to Fawkner. If it is a nice day or you were seeking an alternate journey along the Upfield Line, this is a great path that is predominantly adjacent to the Upfield Line. Nothing beats some fun exercise while seeing some trains pass by. Alright, maybe I'm a little biased there, but you know what I mean. With a lot of the stations along the bike path set to become Skyrail, similar to the Moreland and Coburg stations already, it is also a great way to ride past some historic station buildings too. And if you don't want to ride a bike, you can walk or run along the pathway too, as there is plenty of nice nature around. Next up, future plans or projects. Now, there's already set to be a lot of change in the near future on the Upfield Line. Whilst once been subject to potential light rail conversion, there will be a number of level crossing removes and the line being converted into a Skyrail. In addition, an Extrapolis train will soon run revenue service on the Upfield line when the Extrapolis 2.0s enter service. Some exciting changes and modernisation to a rather historic looking line set to come up in the next few years. But if we were to be picky, how could we increase the frequency on the Upfield line in the near future? Well, the Upfield line becomes a little challenge due to the single track section between Gowrie and Upfield, which are the last two stations on the line. As there is about a 4 to 5 minute travel time between the two stations, plus a few minutes required for the driver to switch ends, increasing frequency to better than every 15 minutes is quite a challenge. There is, however, two main options that could be considered. Firstly, duplicate the line to Upfield. However, spacing may be a problem and it could be very costly to do so with not much benefit in return. Alternatively, and maybe more practically, every second service or something like that could not run all the way to Upfield and maybe terminate a little closer to the city, such as either at Gowrie or Batman stations. Whilst the first option is technically possible already, where the train terminates at Gowrie, runs empty to the points and then switches tracks, it is time consuming and may not work. In addition, changes to signalling would also need to be made. On the other hand, with points already in place on the down end of Coburg Station, and it is actually possible with signalling to terminate at Batman and run the other way, no extra works such as changing the signalling or track formation is required. But of course, the downside is that this does not benefit any passengers from the stations beyond Batman on the line. So this is all really just food for thought, but at one point in time or another, frequency will need to be improved on the Upfield line. It might be in a few years' time, it might be in, dare I say, a few hundred years' time, who knows? And we'll finish off with a cool story, and for this it's more of rather an interesting observation in regards to the Upfield Line station naming, so this is more of a collection of multiple stories throughout history. First up, the terminus station of Upfield, being Upfield Station, actually lies on the suburb border of Coolaroo and Campbellfield. The only other line not named after a suburb on the Melbourne electrified network is the Alamein line, which terminates in the suburb of Ashburton. Secondly, North Melbourne Station is actually in West Melbourne, and the actual two stations on the network that lie in the suburb of North Melbourne are actually on the Upfield line, which are Macaulay Station, which is named after the adjacent Macaulay Road, and Flemington Bridge Station. Next up, the only station in the suburb of Parkville is named Royal Park. Go figure. And finally, only 3 of the 13 stations that lie on the Upfield line exclusively are named after the suburb they are in, being Brunswick, Coburg, and Fawkner. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video and learned a thing or two about the operation of the Upfield line. And I think we'll leave it at that. Cheers.